You are 27, and you have just been politely banished. The room was full of old money, men and women whose surnames appeared on buildings before you were born, and you were not asked to leave, but the conversation shifted when you entered, slipping from substance to weather. You stood at the edge of the champagne circle, holding a glass, and realized you did not exist in their world. Not because you lacked money. You had made your first real capital, a modest 7 figures from a tech exit. But because money is only the ticket to the door, it is not the invitation. That night, you go home and stare at the ceiling. You are angry. You want to buy the car, the watch, the loud badge of arrival. But somewhere in the quiet, a different thought crystallizes. Power is not having the most visible thing in the room. Power is walking into the room and being recognized without any visible thing at all. You begin a new spreadsheet. It doesn't track net worth. It tracks silence. It tracks the decoupling of your ego from your assets. You will not chase old money. You will become so deeply rooted that old money will have to acknowledge you, not as a guest, but as a landmark. This is the seed.
11 years pass. Your liquidity has grown, but so has your discipline. You no longer attend parties seeking entry. You host silences. Your house, a restored stone farmhouse 4 hours from the capital, has no obvious technology, no display of art whose prices can be Googled. The true art is in the deed, the water rights, the agricultural covenant you've attached to the land that prevents any development for 99 years. You have learned the second language of old money. Influence is transacted through stillness. You are the person who connects 2 families across a generational deal without ever appearing in the minutes. You sit on the board of an obscure charitable trust that controls access to something crucial, a collection, an archive, a path to a political ear. You never raise your voice. You never raise your portfolio. Your name now appears only in whispers. And that is the point. At 38, you receive a handwritten letter from one of the men who ignored you at 27. He is asking to meet. Not because you are richer, you are still far smaller in capital, but because you have acquired something he cannot buy, a private bridge between 2 worlds he needs to cross.
You are 52. The word power has changed its meaning again. It is no longer the ability to enter a room, or even to host one. It is the ability to remove something from the market, permanently. You begin to own what cannot be replaced. Not the company's shares. You let others fight over quarterly earnings. But the mineral rights to a forgotten seam of land that just happens to sit beneath a future infrastructure corridor. Not the media outlet, but the archive of a legendary photographer whose negatives will become the only authentic visual record of an era. Your office is a converted stable, heated by a geothermal system you installed quietly. You have one assistant, a historian by training, whose job is to trace provenance, not stock prices. You are no longer investing. You are withdrawing assets from the noise, placing them into a family entity so complex and yet so legally serene that it becomes a kind of monastery for capital. One afternoon, you sit with your daughter, now 21. She asks you why you never appeared on the lists her friends' parents boast about. You tell her, the people on the lists are the ones who need permission. We don't ask for permission. We provide the ground for others to ask permission upon. Be the earth, not the tree. The tree gets cut down. The earth remains. You realize you have become something unnameable, a keeper of the keys to rooms that most people don't know exist.
64. Your name has become a whispered benchmark. Not billionaire, that's too common now, too easy. Instead, your name functions as an adjective. The blank wing, the blank collection, a blank standard of restoration. The capital you command has become almost irrelevant. It's the vetting that matters. You are the person who decides whether a piece of cultural heritage is authentic, worthy, and safe. Institutions send you objects not to sell, but to be approved. You have become a secular pope of a very specific, very quiet, very permanent domain. You spend your mornings in the library you built, not for your books, but for the books of a 17th century astronomer whose entire life's work you acquired at auction and are now donating, on the condition that it be housed in a room of your specifications in perpetuity. You are not just preserving culture, you are framing the context in which the future will understand the past. This is the apex of old money power, the power to shape the story, not just own the asset. Your grandson, now 9, asks if he can play in the library. You lift him onto your knee and let him touch a 400-year-old star chart. You say, "This is our job, not to own things, but to be the safe passage through which things travel from the past to the future. We are not owners. We are custodians of wonder." He doesn't fully understand yet, but he will.
81. You no longer have a desk, an office, or a schedule. Your existence is now atmospheric. People in your orbit speak of the principles as if they were weather systems. He would never allow that. That doesn't align with his vision. We must maintain the standard. You are not a person. You are a set of invisible blueprints that dictate behavior across a network you rarely visit. The original money you made, the early tech exit, is now a distant memory, a single copper coin at the bottom of a deep fountain. What you built on top of it, the trust, the holdings, the cultural fingerprints, the unspoken influence, has become self-replicating. Every year, a new curator is trained in your library. Every decade, a piece of land you deed-restricted matures into a permanent preserve. You have become, in effect, a civic institution without any official title. You stand in the garden of the stone farmhouse you bought at 35, now a place so deeply layered with memory, it feels like a living organism. You are completely at peace. You realize the final truth. Old money is not money. It is the shape left in the culture after a person who understood permanence has passed through. You think back to that humiliated 27-year-old at the party. You don't feel triumphant. You feel grateful. He gave you the gift of invisibility. You turn and walk back inside. The air itself is different. It is charged with something without a name. That something is you. The machine of legacy breathes on.
The levels of old money power are not about the size of the account. They are about the depth of the imprint. At 27, you learn invisibility. At 38, you learn silence. At 52, you learn irreplaceability. At 64, you learn custodianship. At 81, you become the atmosphere itself. This path is open to anyone willing to stop performing and start planting. If you're standing at the edge of your own version of that party, knowing you were meant for something quieter and far more permanent, you've already begun. Build not for the applause of the room you're in, but for the air that your great-grandchildren will breathe. Welcome to the inheritance of silence. Welcome to old money power.